Welcome everyone to the special edition, the emergency edition, the May 19th edition of the Employer Handbook Zoom office hour. My name is Eric Meyer. I am an employment lawyer at the newly minted AmLaw 200 Fisher Broyles, first and largest distributed law firm to make the AmLaw 200. Congratulations, shout out Fisher Broyles. And I am pleased to be joined by three of my employment law partners. I'm going to go around the wheel, Brady Bunch style, looking to my left. I don't know how this is going to show up on YouTube. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube right now, because I am recording this, subscribe, click that like button, smash that like button, as they say, comment down below. But I'm going to go around the wheel. Dave Renner, welcome to the Employer Handbook office hour. Nice to see you.
Good seeing you, Eric. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm one of the newer members of Fisher Broyles labor and employment team. I joined the firm in February. I am, like I said, a labor and employment lawyer. I've been doing this for, I don't know, 10 or so years. And I have been practicing in all areas of employment. And over the past year, had a pretty big emphasis on all of the fun we've been having with COVID and the restrictions in the workplace and the ever-changing landscape. So I am excited to be here to talk to everybody.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here, Dave. We appreciate it. Another member of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania clan. We like that.
Yes.
Amy, you're a regular here. Good to see you again. How you doing?
I am. I feel like I have a guest starring role.
For those who might not be familiar with my partner, Amy Epstein-Gluck, Amy, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Eric. As Eric mentioned, my name is Amy Epstein-Gluck. I am an employment lawyer and a litigator. I am here in the Washington, D.C. area, where it is a beautiful day, although not as sunny as Eric's face makes it look like. I am employment counsel to the firm, and I pretty much counsel small and large businesses all about employment compliance and all kinds of issues, including COVID, as well as the various statutes implicated. I'm very excited to be here today.
Thanks for being here. This should be fairly exciting. And we promise, folks, we're not going to say it depends. We have other sayings we're going to use instead of it depends. Gordon Berger, sitting it below me on the screen, but always above me. Gordon, how you doing?
Good to see you and good to see everyone. I too am a repeat offender or a returning guest. I guess I did good enough to be invited back. I'm a proud member of the firm as well, and just passed my 2-year anniversary about a month ago. Also, primarily practice in the labor and employment arena. And see, I have some fans, friends, and clients on, so I appreciate that.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for being here. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Perfect segue. And by the way, folks, thank you very much. Thank you. We are sold out. 500 showed up. Don't leave, because you may not get back in. I'll try and admit people from the waiting room, but I don't know. We'll see what Zoom does. Anyway, I want to key off of something that Gordon just said, the rules for today, all right? First off, I don't think anyone can unmute themselves. Don't try, just don't. And don't turn on your video. I'm pretty sure you can't do that either. Disclaimer, the four of us are lawyers. We see many of our clients in here. For the next hour, you're not our clients because we're not giving legal advice here. We're not creating any attorney-client privilege. We assume that all of those great questions that you're going to ask throughout this session using the chat feature are hypothetical and you're asking them for a friend, okay? And we're going to respond without saying those two words, ID. We'll do our best, but we're assuming that everything is hypothetical. If you have a real legal question that is specific to your workplace, don't ask it on a free Zoom. That's kind of silly. You probably have outside counsel already, all right? Call them up, ask them, let them get a little billing in, let them do their job. So ask them, okay? And I already went through closed captioning. Folks, if you need closed captioning, it is turned on by default. If you'd like to turn it off, just maximize your screen. Go down to the bottom and click CC or the little arrow next to the CC live transcript, and you can hide the subtitles, all right? All right. let's get started. Dave, you're the new guy here. This is like, we're going to put you through your paces, like Animal House. This is pledging time. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit, to the extent people don't know what's going on, just a elevator speech on the CDC guidance that took us all by surprise on Thursday.
Yeah, so last Thursday, the CDC kind of did almost an about face, it seems, and without any notice or forewarning, changed their guidance for, I think it was the second time in what, 2-3 weeks. And they're essentially now saying that, fully vaccinated individuals no longer need to wear a mask or socially distance or physically distance. Except unless there is some other type of law preempting that, state, federal, local law, or if there is an individual workplace or business guidance. It also said that fully vaccinated folks can refrain from testing following some type of known exposure unless they have their residence at a correctional or detention facility or a homeless shelter. So basically, as I view it, for all intents and purposes, fully vaccinated folks can go back to February of 2020 in most circumstances.
Well, we'll get into it. Most circumstances, except I think that's why everyone's here today, right?
That's a little crazy.
Right.
And you're advocating that people can time travel, I see. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll go with that.
Hey, if we all could do it, I'm sure we all would, right?
That's exactly right. So, Amy, next on my little outline, I come back to the question that we were fielding, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, is now the time to revisit mandating vaccinations, right? Because that would make it easy. If everyone's vaccinated, everyone can just take the mask off. So should businesses be thinking about mandating vaccinations? And before you answer that question, I'm going to try something I've never done before. And that is, I'm going to do a poll. Let's see if it works. Your answers, folks, are anonymous. And
you did
I
it.
see it.
Well done.
All right.
Excellent.
I'll let it go for a couple more seconds. All right. Not everyone has to vote, but it looks like everyone's going to. No, we're good. Well, the vast majority there, 3/4 of folks. Let me share the results. It's for everyone that can see it. 3/4 of people, 3/4 of businesses, no way are they going to require folks to get the COVID-19 vaccine. So, Amy, against that backdrop,
I'm not
too enthused about it. What do you say?
I'm not surprised by that. The last time I checked, it was about 9% nationwide, and I know we're a microcosm of the nation. You can mandate vaccines pursuant to EEOC guidance, which is just guidance. It's not a rule. It's not a law. You just have to be able to, as you all probably know by now, account for any disability or religious-based exemption to that rule. Do I see employers now saying, let's do this, let's mandate it, and then we don't have to have an issue? No, I really don't. Because what's the alternative? What are you going to do if somebody says, no, I don't want to get vaccinated? You're going to fire 30% of your workforce if it's 30% of your workforce. So I don't really see this causing a great migration to mandatory vaccinations.
Yeah, where I've seen it personally is in the healthcare space, right?
Sure.
That makes sense. Where flu shots before, you'd make people get flu shots, subject to, as you were talking about, Amy, accommodations. So if someone has a fear of needles, or they're allergic to the vaccine, or they have a sincerely held belief that they can't do it. Pregnancy is another basis upon which you'd accommodate. So those people would wear masks, right? And
right.
I think the same generally applies here. I've actually done a couple of mandatory vaccine policies recently. I don't really question it. It's what the client wants, so I just do it, make sure it's compliant. But those policies do have the carve-outs for
yes, and so have I. In assisted living facilities and nursing homes, in places where you're talking about employees who could potentially put residents at risk, like healthcare settings, like nursing homes, like assisted living, and the EOC guidance certainly lets you do it. You have to be aware of the emergency use authorization, but that's a topic for another day. I think that is certainly one workaround from having, and I'm probably skipping ahead, different policies for vaccinated people versus unvaccinated people.
Yeah. All right, let's not bury the lead any longer. Gordon, should businesses allow fully vaccinated people to go maskless at work? That's the big question. I'm going to post another poll. This is for non-customer facing employees. So you're in the back office, you're in the warehouse, you're not with employees. Should these folks be allowed to go maskless? Let's see. Yeah, most people are, we got about 2/3 saying yes. All right. On the polling there. Yeah, a little more than 50. Yeah, almost 60%. And a lot of people just don't know, and I get that. I mean, that's the thing, right, Gordon? When this news hit, let me ask it a different way. When this news hit on Thursday, and clients are calling us frantic, saying, "What do we do? What do we do?" Like, we didn't know right away, or did you know? Maybe you knew. I didn't know.
I did not have the foreknowledge. No. I had to. I'm still mulling it over. Because the guidance doesn't direct to an employer; it directs to individuals. And OSHA hasn't really updated and clarified what it's doing, other than saying, well, you can follow the recent guidelines by the CDC, but that still doesn't get us anywhere with an employer so much. So no, I don't have any easy answers. And of course, part of this is a product of the nature of the business, where the business is located, and considerations like safety. And there are certain instances where wearing a mask can proposes a danger or a safety issue. And you get into problematic issues like you say you're vaccinated. Are we going to go on the honor system, or are we going to base this on mandating you show me your vaccination card?
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Right. I mean, you have a number of considerations, but clearly, if you want to take the more conservative approach, you wouldn't delineate, and you'd continue to say our safest course would be subject to the exceptions that have already been discussed. Everyone is to mask up, and unless we're in contravention of some law for some reason, this is what we're going to do. And like the rest of you, I have done a few mandatory vaccination policies, but I'm doing more voluntary ones as well. I think most employers are reluctant right now to make any wholesale changes for reasons we've covered. So in a way, if your jurisdiction provides you with the latitude, you have the freedom to make that decision on what you think is right. With my only caveat is consider the safety implications. Yep,
for sure. And you make a good point, Gordon. It is really based on your jurisdiction or jurisdictions if you're a multi-state employer, right? So you're down in Georgia where it's a bit of a free-for-all, no offense. I mean, it is what it is. Florida, Texas, business can basically do what it wants, right? Do what it wants. Then we go to some of the more conservative states, like California is going to have a mask mandate until mid-June. New Jersey, Governor Murphy said he's not ready to lift any sort of mask mandate indoors. They're going to lift a mask mandate outdoors in certain settings, but indoors, they're keeping the mask mandate. And then, Dave, we've got these middle of the road states like New York, who's just kind of pivoted a little bit. And Governor Cuomo has said that they're going to follow CDC. Connecticut, Delaware, same way. Our state, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, it's in an executive order that we're going to follow the CDC guidance. So let me ask you, David, we're in one of these kind of middle, well, it could be any one of these states, I guess, right? Where you have the option to go maskless inside. Can employers demand proof of vaccination? That's a question I got a lot. Can employers demand proof of vaccination?
I mean, the short answer is, as I see it, yes, because as the CDC's come out and said that it's not requesting medical information under the ADA or GINA. Now they have to be careful. If somebody says, for instance, I did not get the vaccine, asking the follow-up question, well, why not? You got to be careful. You can't, asking for proof of a vaccination is permitted and is not implicating, any type of medical information or, for, I would say, nearly every employer that I guess would not be a covered entity under HIPAA would not be considered any type of HIPAA violation like I said, for most employers, but you don't want to ask those follow-up questions that are going to elicit, other type of medical information from those employees. Why did you not get the vaccine? There's an underlying medical condition. That's when employers can really start getting themselves into trouble in this regard.
Yeah, let's emphasize that HIPAA point, because that was probably the most common question that people submitted in advance of this Zoom is it a HIPAA violation to ask if someone is vaccinated? Answer, no. Well, in most workplaces, no, right? HIPAA only covers covered entities. We're talking about healthcare providers. We're talking about insurance plans, like healthcare plans, things like that. But just average employers, no. Go check out John Hyman's recent blog post. He does a great job of explaining this on the Ohio Employer Law blog, okay? He goes through in about 300 words why asking for whether someone is vaccinated is not a HIPAA violation. I mean, shoot, people, we were taking temperatures, right? We're asking people to fill out questionnaires about, are you sick? How you feeling? Do you have a headache? Was anyone pitching a fit about HIPAA then? No. I mean, it's not different now. We're just asking whether someone got the vaccine, subject to Dave's caveats. Be wary about those follow-up questions, because then we can get into ADA territory medical examination, or GINA, Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, by asking about family medical history. Amy, some states have gone so far as to say you can't even do this. Vaccine passports, right? Show me proof. Some states say, right?
Yes, some states view the vaccine passport as a violation of privacy and civil rights and civil liberties. I know that I believe Governor DeSantis banned vaccine passports. There's a whole handful of states. There's a lot of different ways to give proof of vaccines or to elicit proof from your employees. I don't know really enough about the technology to speak to the privacy aspects of this and whether this would be a violation. But I just think that it's going to depend. I know you didn't want to use that term, but it will depend on the state that you're in as to whether or not, what type of proof is required and whether you can request some kind of app or something like that, something similar to gain proof from your employees or even your visitors if you're a public facing entity.
So anyone here from Montana? Say it right in the chat. If you're here from Montana, every once in a while we get someone from Montana. There's actually a law in Montana where you can't discriminate against people based on their vaccination status. It was recently passed in response to COVID-19 and the push for getting people vaccinated. So yeah, Montana actually has a law, and as Amy said, Florida, South Dakota, Arizona, Idaho, South Carolina, and Texas.
Texas, right?
All have executive orders that in some way, shape, or form impact when businesses, mostly in the public sector, can ask for vaccination status. So, Gordon, we're talking about now, a business has decided that we're going to let people who are vaccinated not wear masks. We're going to accept the CDC guidance. There are basically two ways that I can think of to go about it. You've got kind of the active, what I'll call the active enforcement system, where up front you're asking for proof of vaccination, right? The employee provides it. Presumably there's some sort of secondary, like a sticker or some kind of like a V for vaccine. I don't know that you wear in your shirt or you wear your vaccine card around your neck, something that does the belt and suspenders with the proof of vaccination. I'll call that active enforcement. So you can actually see the person is truly, vaxxed, versus the honor system, which is, look, if you're vaccinated, fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. If you aren't fully vaccinated, you do have to wear a mask. Honor system, we're not going to check. What do you think?
Well, I mean, obviously both pose benefits and risks. I'll start with the honor system. So that's the least invasive because you're not getting into privacy. You're not asking questions about whether and why somebody has chosen to be vaccinated or not. So you're basically relying on the honesty of your workforce, and it doesn't require any compliance or documentation on your part, because it would be just sort of, you walk in the door and you're telling me you were vaccinated. Okay, no mask. Of course, that lends itself to potential for abuse because there are folks that never believed in wearing masks to begin with, and so they're going to take advantage and not wear it. And then you're going to probably get complaints that someone believes an individual who has claimed that they have been vaccinated has not been, for whatever reason. And you're going to have to go ahead and address that in some capacity, including maybe an investigation, because it could pose a risk to those who aren't vaccinated being exposed to somebody who could be asymptomatic, let's say. So that's the honor side. On the active enforcement side, as you're referring it to, obviously the proof of vaccination, you get documentation. Question is whether you make a copy of that card and you keep it in a separate medical file and treat it like any other medical document, or they flash it to you and you accept that and you've seen it once and you're good to go. So you have that, and then I have become more aware that there are actually fake cards that could be provided for a price. Now you could buy one. Surprisingly, no. And then you have the issue of, so now you're getting into sort of self-identification and delineation in an overt manner. So it's one thing for you to tell HR as an employee, hey, I got vaccinated, just FYI. But then you get into this idea of creating some sort of scarlet letter, for lack of a better way of putting it, or other identifier that says, here are vaccinated people who have something they're wearing, or that there's some indicator, versus the person that now doesn't have that. And you have to be careful because you get into discrimination issues, disparate treatment issues. Clearly, it's more invasive because you're requiring information. And although it's permitted to ask if somebody's been vaccinated, if you get into the inquiry of why or why not, you're probably crossing a line there into getting into medical information. So, I'm not a fan of the sticker or, coding or, other outward, and David and I were talking about this. Yeah, I feel like it lends itself to a possibility of somebody arguing that either they've been treated differently, or same problem you have with the honor system, that you're going to get complaints that somebody's, falsely taking credit for having been vaccinated when they were not, or, you go down this path of getting into, are you fulfilling your duty to protect your employees? I think that's the bottom line.
Dave, what do you think of the three options? Honor system, active enforcement, or shoot, everyone's got to wear a mask. What do you think?
I mean, again, not to use that phrase that we all hate, but I mean, I think to a certain extent too, it's going to depend on where you are located and what your state's order is. So for instance, here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the current mask order says that employers or businesses, are required to take steps to reasonably enforce the mask mandate. And the way that the order is structured says that it's an exemption to the mask mandate if you are per the CDC guidance. So it just makes the CDC guidance an exemption. So for those non-vaxxed individuals, the employer has to take reasonable steps to make sure that they are enforcing the mask mandate. What would be considered reasonable steps to ensure they're enforcing the mask mandate? I'm not so sure exactly if in a jurisdiction like that, if the honor system necessarily is. It could be, but I could certainly see, the various enforcement agencies coming down the other way and saying, you cannot, it's just the honor system's not possible or not a reasonable step to enforce the mask mandate. When you look at the, active enforcement, I agree with what Gordon said, and we've got, some problems with, creating the, what I'll call the Scarlet V or some other indication of, identifying. But, that being said, I'll be honest, I've struggled to find a legal prohibition to actually doing that. I mean, other than the, the concerns we've gone over about, some type of disparate impact or there being some underlying potential discrimination, but I've yet to find some legal requirement that says you're not allowed to do that. I guess if you're going to take the most conservative approach, just everybody masks up in your jurisdiction until the mask mandate's lifted for everybody. But again, that doesn't necessarily, I don't think, come with legal implications, but it certainly can come with a lot of, well, the employee saying, well, what the heck? I went and got the vaccine like you asked me to, and like everybody's asking me to, I should be able to have a little bit of freedom now. And now my employer is telling me that now I can't do that. Legally, they're allowed to do that, allowed to continue wearing the masks. And that's probably the most, conservative approach at this point in time.
Amy, do you think there's a concern here about if we have a system where whether it's the active enforcement system or the honor system, or the fully vaxxed people can go maskless if they want to. They don't have to, but if they want to, and everyone else has to wear a mask. Could there be a problem here with discrimination against people with disabilities and sincerely held beliefs? Because all of a sudden, maybe they'd like to get vaccinated, but they can't, and now they're basically outed as having disabilities? Or are they just going to blend into the rest of the population with the people who aren't vaxxed and the people who just want to wear masks anyway?
I mean, I have so much to say.
Go.
Response to that.
We've got a half hour.
I think this is such a mess. Somebody said it in the chat, and I think that the honor system, first of all, we're lawyers. We have suspicious, dark, and pessimistic minds. So the honor system for me, unless we're talking about a very specific workplace where, mostly your small workplaces where people, that would really worry me. And a lot of my clients' workplaces, I don't think are conducive to any kind of honor system. And I would want proof. In terms, of course, I agree with what my partners say in terms of you can, of course, the conservative approach, have everyone wear masks, and generally I'd rather be safe than sorry. As we've said over the last year, I would rather, defend a discrimination claim than, an OSHA or personal injury claim. Somebody gets sick. But I do think that there are discrimination issues. And I do think, especially with invisible disabilities like mental health conditions, it's just going to be a gigantic minefield. Okay. Leaving aside the whole industry issue and the whole state issue and what the executive orders are, what the state rules are, and now we're looking at with CDC guidance, waiting for the OSHA rule, waiting for EOC guidance. You have people who could not get vaccinated, who absolutely have asthma or some kind of anaphylactic reaction to vaccines, and they could not get vaccinated. I think that when you start excluding those people from the cafeteria, the lunchroom, from the big conference room during meetings, I think that you are absolutely looking at a possible discrimination claim. I know that some states, and I know I wasn't going to talk about specific states, but I know that some states have, started to say, okay, well, you can't sue your employer then for discrimination. But I don't think that's going to fly. And I think we are going to see case law popping up in the next year about that. By the same token, I think when we have people in masks and no masks, I think that's going to take your people who already have invisible disabilities, especially your generalized anxiety disorder, things that so many employees developed over the last year. If you look at CDC has information on this, how much mental health has deteriorated in the last year. I think that when people see other people walking around with no masks, I think it is going to lead to so many more requests for accommodations from our HR departments to our HR departments, and requests to maybe telecommute, especially if those people with mental health conditions or who have developed them can't get vaccinated themselves, or live with elderly parents, or have little kids at home. I think this whole thing is really a minefield. And I'm interested to see what the EOC has to say about it.
Yes. Hey, EOC, if you're watching this, it's been since December since we've gotten an update. Come on. This is a perfect time. I've got another poll. This is the big one. This is the money poll, folks. It's anonymous. No one's going to know what you say. But what is your business planning to do about masks at work? We're curious. Let's see. Oh, wow. Well, we don't know yet. That's a cop out. I threw that in there, people, but okay, it's fair. It's fair. It is really split.
I think we need a recount to eliminate that question.
Stop it. We're not doing that today.
Well, I was surprised you didn't suppose that we don't know yet. I thought you were
Not even going
here
there
to find out.
All right, so look at
Change
this.
the rules.
We've got, a third who don't know yet, and the other ones are pretty well split. All right. So I want to come back to mental health issues later on. I think we're going to have some questions about that. I think that's a really important topic. But I wanted to ask Gordon about OSHA. You okay? Talk about OSHA a little bit.
OSHA, yes.
Okay, wonderful. So OSHA hadn't updated its guidance since January, and their position on masks in the workplace was don't treat everyone the same. Like, don't treat people who mask and unmask differently. Everyone should be treated the same, basically. Don't have different rules for different people. Now, what's going on with OSHA?
It's the proverbial punt, right?
Right.
So, okay, CDC has spoken. So now you need to follow what the CDC has said. And oh, by the way, we're going to look into this further and we'll get back to you when we have some more information for you. That, in essence, is what they've said.
Okay. I think, is it fair to say, or does anyone on this panel disagree with me that OSHA's position, more likely than not going forward, is going to be if you're fully vaxxed, you don't have to wear a mask? I mean, that is probably going to be their position, if we guess. You have your magic 8-ball sitting next to you, Gordon.
I agree with you, but remember when the ARPA came out, the American Rescue Plan Act came out, it gave OSHA $2 million, right? And that, at the time, I recall, we talked about thinking that that would be for them to step up their enforcement efforts, step up their investigations about employers who weren't, who didn't have safe workplaces. So, I guess OSHA's going to say that, but then what's the $2 million for?
But how can you go out and inspect and enforce if you haven't put out any guidance to say anything has changed? And it's kind of a catch-22 they put themselves in.
Exactly.
Well, I imagine one of the issues at OSHA, as well as under state laws, could be whistleblower claims. And all you need at OSHA is a reasonable good faith belief that
Yep.
the employer
Hmm.
is not maintaining a safe workplace. So you have someone who says, we need to mask up. I don't care what the CDC says. I don't, we gotta socially distance. And they complain to OSHA, or they complain to, I practice law in the state of New Jersey. We have the Conscientious Employee Protection Act. Someone complains in good faith about something that violates public safety. You don't have to be right about it. All you need is a good faith belief. Boom, you're in litigation. So you wonder where the $2 million is going to go? I think it's going to be OSHA retaliation claims. Yeah. Dave, I want to go back to you. We talked earlier about what employers should do in an office setting with masks, in a warehouse setting, but then it changes a little bit, I would think, if it's a supermarket, or it's a big box store, or it's anywhere where you are dealing with members of the public or customers. So I'm going to do a poll question here. See what the folks think. Would you allow fully vaccinated employees to go maskless if they interact with customers or the public? That's different. Different than it was, for sure.
Hmm.
All right.
The suspense is killing me.
I'm the only one who can see this. I'm sorry. I'll end the polling. I'm the only one who can see this. It's close to 50-50.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dave, I've seen that Publix, Walmart, there are a couple of other box, Home Depot maybe, I'm not sure. I know Publix and Walmart have basically said for customers on our system, you don't have to wear a mask. Again, depending on the jurisdiction, but generally speaking, you don't have to wear a mask. But like Publix, I believe, for example, said our employees still need to wear masks. Do you expect that to be the approach, at least in the short term going forward?
I think so, personally. I mean, I think like you said, at least in the interim, and frankly, I think until the mask guidance is lifted in those jurisdictions for everybody, I think that's probably going to be what we see in most circumstances, because I think, businesses don't want to be in a position of potentially turning away customers because their employees aren't wearing masks. And there are, if this pandemic has taught us anything, there are a number of individuals in the general public that are still very concerned about this virus at this point in time, and are concerned about going to a grocery store or a Walmart or some other location where the employees aren't wearing a mask, or frankly encountering anybody with a mask. And I think they have to weigh the balances. One, you don't want to have turning away customers by requiring them to wear a mask when they don't want to, or they don't necessarily think they have to under the guidance, versus also turning away customers that think that they don't want to be there because people aren't wearing a mask. Because I can tell you, I think there's a lot of people out there, if there's a Walmart and a Publix across the street from each other, and one's going to require a customer to walk in with a mask, and one's not going to require the customer to walk in with a mask, and they're vaccinated, I think the vaccinated individual is going to go to the place where they don't have to wear a mask. But I think, at least in the interim, as it comes to employees, I think we're going to see a lot of businesses, forward-facing businesses, still requiring masks for employees, because, again, it's to do the lawyer answer, it's the most conservative thing to do in this regard, I think, because I think it's going to offend, or cause concerns in the least amount of people, and continue to drive business to your business.
Yeah, I think we're at the point right now on May 19th, 2021, that pretty much, with the exception of folks who have disabilities or sincerely held religious beliefs, anyone who wants a vaccine has gotten the vaccine, or at least has gotten shot one, is on their way to getting fully vaccinated. Anyone who doesn't want it isn't getting it, with the exception of children. And I think that is a distinguishing feature between what we allow for employees who don't interact with the public and what we allow for employees who do interact with the public. Because I think if I'm a parent and I'm bringing my children into a big box store and they're not vaccinated yet, I'm a little bit uncomfortable if I see people who work for the store walking around without masks on. Like, I don't know how good their checks and balances are. I mean, I'd like to think they're all checked and they're all vaccinated. What if they aren't? And I don't want to deal with that. So, I don't know. That's just me. Amy, I'll go back to you. I see in the chat, there's been some talk about vaccine incentives. Is that still a thing anymore? Like, are we concerned about vaccine incentives, or is not having to wear a mask the ultimate vaccine incentive?
I mean, I think that it is still a thing. You know, as you know, and as we talked about, I believe on a different call, you know, the EEOC in January said, okay, you can only provide a de minimis incentive for somebody to get vaccinated, right? Or else it's going to be part of an employer's wellness program, and that's got its own requirements. And then they rolled it back. They pulled it back, right? So we're seeing a lot of people offering some very interesting things, right? I saw in the chat too, $75 gift cards, or, you know, an extra dump in your paycheck. I like incentives. Incentives don't bother me. I think it's a good idea. You and I have talked about this at length. I think some people will still get vaccinated. I don't think that we're done seeing people getting vaccinated. And I like the idea of incentives, you know, in terms of paid time off, additional paid time off. But that little gift card, you know, $50 gift card, $20 gift card, $10 gift card, I think it's a solid idea. I also think that, you know, to sweeten the idea of customers wearing a mask, if you're still going to require a mask, as we were talking about, you know, Krispy Kreme offering that free donut. I don't think that's a bad thing. And businesses can really make the decision based on, you know, their state guidance, their local guidance, and what they're comfortable doing. So you know, if I had kids who were too young to get vaccinated, I would be worried about going into a store where people didn't have to wear masks. But I think that the idea of incentives to have people wear masks, people to get vaccinated, I like it. I'm here for it.
All right. Nice. We had a bunch of questions submitted in advance, and I want to get to some of those in a minute, but I also want to clean up a couple of little bullet point topics that I had on my outline here. And I think I can handle these pretty quickly because we've got about 15 minutes left, and just resetting real quickly. I'm Eric, that's Dave. Oh, that's Dave. There we go. Down there is Amy. I don't know how this is going to look on YouTube, so I'm not going to point anymore. And there's Gordon. Thanks everyone for being here. We appreciate you. This is the Employer Handbook Office Hour. So I want to talk about a couple things. Collective bargaining. If you are in a unionized workplace and you want to change the rules on safety, you may need to negotiate with your union. Okay, so this is one of those, your mileage will vary depending on what your collective bargaining agreement says, depending on what jurisdiction you are in, whether you're public, private employer, but collective bargaining, just think about before you change any rules, whether you have a duty to negotiate in good faith with your union. If you rent space in a building, okay, think about what the landlord's rules are. Think about what the common space rules are. Okay, you may want to be like, I don't want to, you know, you're fully vaccinated, no mask. But the landlord may say, we don't care, mask, you got a mask. So just keep that in mind before you go around changing your rules. Talk to your landlord. Conversely, if you're a landlord, talk to your tenants. There may be insurance related issues before you decide to go gung-ho and maskless. So maybe just to the extent that could impede or interfere with any coverages, you might want to give a quick call to your insurance carrier and say, hey, or your broker and say, hey, we're thinking about adopting the CDC guidance about allowing fully vaxxed people to go maskless. Any issue there, right? Is that a problem? We talked a little bit about disparate treatment, disparate impact. I suppose that's when you have a rule that is, you know, well-intentioned but unintentionally discriminates against people. Folks, unvaccinated people are not a protected class in and of themselves. Like that's, you know, if someone doesn't want to get vaccinated, it's up to them. But they can't say you're discriminating against me because you have rules that allow people who are fully vaxxed to not wear masks. So I'm not so concerned about that. What I would be concerned about is confrontations, things escalating, names being called, and all of a sudden we slip into protected class situations, right? If it gets political or things like that, we start talking about xenophobic issues or you know, national origin issues, race, whatever. So disability, just be careful about that. Okay, I think I have cleared off the punch list. I want to make sure that my esteemed guests can, in the last 10 minutes, hit whatever topics they want, but I'm going to toss some questions out there that were asked in advance. Someone asked, and I'll ask Gordon, what do you think about this? Can an employer treat vaxxed and unvaxxed employees differently with respect to off-site customer assignments? Do you have any issue with that?
To the extent it's not done in a discriminatory manner, and it's consistent with safety protocols, I would say yes.
Okay. Dave, what do you think about how the new mask rules, vax rules impact those health screening questionnaires that a lot of employers were using for employees before they show up to work each day? You know, check this box if you haven't, you know, confirm that you haven't been exposed to COVID-19, haven't had COVID-19, don't have the fever and all that stuff. Does the new CDC guidance change that in any way?
I suppose it could, but I don't see any harm in continuing to ask those questions as we move forward. I mean, I know the CDC's guidance says that fully vaccinated folks don't have to, you know, quarantine or self-isolate if they've been exposed to somebody. But I don't necessarily see the harm in continuing to require those, you know, before you come into the office questionnaire questions.
Amy, here's a question. Are we at the point yet that we can require on-site COVID testing, or that we should have on-site COVID testing?
COVID testing, not COVID vaccination.
Not COVID vaccination, COVID testing.
On-site COVID testing.
Yeah.
I think that would be subject to the same types of requirements, you know, that we were talking about a year ago. I think that under the ADA, you know, you're looking at it being a potential medical examination, number one. Number two, I would wonder if there was a need for it. You know, if it was some kind of like OSHA type issue, whether there was a direct threat type of issue. You know, I think it would depend on the workplace and the context and why at this point you're looking to test. What's the goal there?
Yeah. All right. I am going to do my best to sort through some of the questions that came in. If you have questions, please ask them in the chat window. Someone asked about, is it a HIPAA violation to ask if employees have gotten the vaccine? We've already clarified that's a no, because most businesses are not covered entities under HIPAA. Can we require masks for now under the OSHA guidance to follow CDC? Does anyone have a problem with requiring masks in the workplace? No, you can. So the answer is yes, you can if you'd like. Let's see. Oh, or what about the issue of announcing to staff or supervisors, let's say, that so-and-so is vaxxed, but so-and-so is not vaxxed? So let's go into the what I call the active enforcement approach, where someone's got to turn in their vax card or show their vax card up front. Maybe they have to wear a sticker or a lapel, but as a further check to that, HR alerts the employee's manager, here's who is vaxxed, so these people can go maskless, and here's who's not vaxxed. Who, raise your, and show of hands, whether as a matter of law or as a matter of business, which of us are okay with that? Okay. No.
Oh, no, once for so many reasons. No,
Why don't you give us a few?
I mean, you're going to have discrimination issues. The matter of who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated should only be handled by HR. Like hard stop. You're not even going to get an it depends for me.
Okay.
Well, and let me add real quick that I have seen that being used to get managers to motivate their subordinates to go get vaccinated. They're publishing the list just to management, so it's not being disclosed publicly in a sense, but it's used as a pressure tactic to shame people that aren't vaccinated.
Ah, how about this? So someone has a good record. Someone has a thought here. Like we're trying to think about what would be your ID. You show your vaccination card, right? What is your you walk around with? What is your proof that you display to show that you're vaccinated? And someone, I mean, I've heard a sticker. I've heard like a little syringe lapel or something like that, which I think is way over the top. Someone mentioned we're doing green bracelets in exchange for your vaccine card. So something that, I don't know, maybe has some kind of either symbolic gesture or something that, you know, could help to, I don't know, raise money or something charitable to go along with showing your vaccine card. What do you think? You like it, or probably a bracelet?
I mean, I think it's kind of the same thing as the a sticker or a lapel pin. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's going to be disclosing the same information, and people are going to figure it out. The employees are going to probably figure it out anyway. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're asking me, I mean, what about teaching your vaccinated employees a secret handshake? I mean, that could also, you're not disclosing anything unless somebody comes up to you and looks for the secret handshake. I mean.
But on the other hand, what it could do is the bracelet or something like that could give people who are really, really nervous about being in a workplace with people who are unmasked, if they can't get vaccinated, some peace of mind. And you cut down on potential, interactive process discussions about, working from home and whatnot in places where that's a possibility.
It's conspicuous, but it's not as conspicuous. It's not like you're wearing your Vax card laminated around your neck, right? I of the three, like a lapel pin, a sticker, the Vax card, or a bracelet. I like the bracelet.
I do too.
Yeah. So let's assume someone violates your rules, whether you go honor system or active enforcement. What's the discipline? I say you're fired.
I'd like to see that in writing before you go ahead and fire them. That's your policy, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would give someone 24, 48 hours, whatever it is, to go get your Vax card, prove it. Like, not everyone carries it on them, but if you can't produce it, I think you're fired. I think there's no second chance.
Well, I think that everybody can take a picture of their Vax card and have it on their phone, right? That's what I did. And I know we talked about that. I think that that's a great idea, and I agree with you in principle. I think in action, that's going to be tough because there's going to be somebody that management doesn't want to fire. And I think it's going to be hard to just fire people straight away consistently.
Yeah. Well, folks, we're getting to the top of the hour. I want to be sensitive to everyone's time. I do want to wrap up at 1. Again, we are recording this. Answered all the questions in some way, shape, or form that came in advance, but I want to give each of my wonderful panelists who are so generous with their time today and to prepare for this. I really do appreciate it. A chance to, you've got the floor for 30 or so seconds each. What do you want to tell the folks,
Okay.
Dave?
Well, there's one thing
Gordon, you go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to mention too, be cognizant of states that have immunity statutes. You can factor that into your decision that if they allow immunity from being sued from COVID-related based on, unless you're grossly negligent or willful about not following protocols, that should weigh into your decision as well.
Yeah. Amy, what do you have to tell the folks?
What I have to tell the folks is these are really, really difficult decisions. And I think it's imperative to have everybody aligned from the top of the food chain, your C-suite, on down, and that whatever you decide, you really discuss the same with qualified employment counsel, because a lot of what we're saying is going to depend on the state and local rules and the executive orders and such. So we're giving you guardrails based on what we know and based on the general, CDC and the general public and things we read and see. But it's really not a substitute for a customized look at what we're dealing with.
Yeah, someone's, to your point, Amy, someone noted somewhere in the comments, I forget where it was, that it looks like Minnesota is relaxing their state mandate pretty soon. So, Dave, floor is yours. You get to close this out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the big takeaways, I mean, you got to stay on top of what your state is doing. And, just because the CDC says something and changes its guidance doesn't necessarily mean that's going to apply in one or more or all of your jurisdictions. So we got to make sure that we're staying on top of our individual jurisdictions. And also, I think, right now, just because the CDC changes their guidance doesn't necessarily mean that employers need to change it immediately thereafter right now. In this instance, just because the CDC's lifted the mask mandate for vaccinated individuals, like we said here today, doesn't necessarily mean you have to do that in your workplace. So it's, I don't want to say necessarily to be flexible, because we have to follow the law and the guidance as it comes out to us. But we do, be willing or be able to pivot to a certain extent when, the new guidance comes out without any notice, and we have to, change and pivot on that dime, and make sure that you're staying on top of that. And to Amy's point, your employment counsel should be consulted in all these and should be keeping you apprised of what's going on in a lot of these instances.
Awesome. Dave, Amy, Gordon, thank you so much. To all the people who got in here today, we had 500 pretty much the whole time. You guys are awesome. Thank you. To your friends who couldn't make it, I know I have some nasty emails in my inbox. This was recorded. I am going to post it. Link probably tomorrow. I'll probably put it up today. Link tomorrow in the blog. Connect with Gordon, Amy, me, Dave on LinkedIn. I've been posting all of their contact information in the chat window. Come check out our law site, our law firm, give a shout out. AmLaw 200 now for Fisher Broyles. Awesome. And as always, check out the YouTube channel. Link in the chat window. All right, folks, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. And we'll do this again soon at some point. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Eric.